In the quiet winter town of Northwood Ridge, where the snow falls like old memories drifting back to the earth, a dog once lost to the darkness of war is about to cross paths with a little girl who carries the warmth of a family he thought he would never see again. This is a story about courage that refuses to die, about the thin line between fear and healing, and about how one child can reach into the heart of a broken canine and pull him back into the world. Before we begin this journey through storms, miracles, and second chances, tell me where you are watching from. Your city, your home, your corner of the world matters to us. Winter had settled over Northwood Ridge with the slow patience of an old storyteller, draping every rooftop, pine branch, and winding road in a white so thick it muted the world into a hush. The town, tucked in the shadow of the northern mountains, had grown used to harsh winters, but this one felt different, colder, heavier, as if the snow itself carried memories no one dared to speak aloud. On a late afternoon, when the light dimmed early behind the ridgeline, a military transport vehicle rolled through the main street. Its engine growled against the silence, tires cracking through ice as it approached the police station at the edge of town. Inside the vehicle lay Rex, a 4-year-old German shepherd, large-boned, with a thick sable coat marred by faint scars around his flank and shoulders. His amber eyes, once known in the military unit as fiercely alert and precise, were now clouded with a tremor of fear he could not hide. Rex was no ordinary dog. He was a former military K-9 from Bomb Disposal Unit 47, a dog trained to smell death before it arrived, a dog who had once run toward danger because loyalty was stitched into every breath he took. But since the explosion that killed his handler, Sergeant Daniel Cross, Rex had been living inside a prison built not of steel and concrete, but of memory and sound, every whistle of wind reminding him of detonations, every clank of metal becoming the echo of a battlefield. Because of this, Rex had been passed from one rehabilitation center to another, 3 in total, each one giving up on him. He had become the dog no one could fix, the one whose nightmares swallowed any progress he tried to make. And now he had been sent to this small mountain town for one last attempt at recovery under a new experimental PTSD program. At the station door waited Captain Jacob Morrison, a man in his mid-50s with a broad frame, shaped by years in uniform. His hair, once black, had turned mostly silver, and deep worry lines sat between his brows. He was known in town as strict but fair, the kind of leader who never raised his voice because he didn't need to. His steady presence alone commanded respect. Morrison had seen many things in his long career, but none had weighed on him the way broken K-9s did. He knew too well that when a dog fell apart, it wasn't out of weakness. It was because they had given everything they had. Standing beside him was Officer Aaron Hale, 32 years old, tall and lean, with the kind of quiet strength shaped by long nights and heavy responsibilities. Aaron carried himself with a calm that felt almost gentle in a world that wasn't. His dark hair was always slightly tousled from habitually running his fingers through it while thinking, and his blue-gray eyes held a depth that spoke of a man who had known loss and didn't talk about it. Aaron was chosen to supervise Rex not just because he was the most competent, but because he understood something most didn't. Aaron had once lost a K-9 partner, a dog named Shadow, during a search and rescue operation in the Rockies 2 years earlier. That loss had carved a permanent ache in him, an ache he hid well, but which shaped how he approached every new case. When the transport stopped, 2 military personnel climbed out, opened the back, and slowly guided Rex down the ramp. The moment the wind hit Rex's fur, he lowered his body, ears flattened, muscles tense. Not aggressive, just afraid. Afraid of a world too loud, too unpredictable. Aaron stepped forward, lowering himself to one knee to appear smaller, less threatening. "Hey, buddy," he murmured, his voice soft but grounded. "You're safe here." Rex did not growl, but his breathing sped up, eyes darting between doors, humans, shadows, searching for a threat only he could see. Captain Morrison glanced at the paperwork. 3 facilities couldn't get him under control, he said quietly, almost regretfully. If he doesn't improve in 30 days, the military will recall him. He didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood it. And he'll be permanently discharged. For K-9s with severe PTSD, permanent discharge often meant a life of isolation, or worse, depending on the severity. Aaron met Morrison's eyes and said without hesitation, "I'll take him." Morrison nodded. "I know your history, Aaron. I wouldn't ask if we had anyone else who could do this." "I want to," Aaron replied, and he meant it. Not out of duty, out of understanding. Rex was guided into the K9 isolation wing at the back of the station. The hallway was warm, lights dimmed low to avoid overstimulation. The K9 room itself was constructed with 2 layers of security doors and reinforced glass panels. As Rex entered the enclosure, he circled once, twice, then curled into the farthest corner, trembling. Aaron stood behind the glass, watching. He noticed every detail, the shallow breathing, the quick flick of the ears, the paws twitching as if remembering running from danger. Aaron recognized PTSD symptoms immediately. Hypervigilance, panic response, trauma triggers. But what struck him most was Rex's eyes. Those eyes weren't violent. They were pleading. Hour passed into evening as snow continued to fall outside, and the station grew quiet except for the hum of heating vents. Aaron stayed, even after his shift ended, sitting on a metal chair outside the glass. "You're not alone," he whispered, even though Rex could barely hear him. But maybe words didn't matter. Presence did. On the desk nearby sat Rex's file, open to the page showing Sergeant Daniel Cross. A man in his late 20s, strong build, warm smile, sand-colored hair, eyes bright with kindness. A man who had loved Rex deeply, training him with patience instead of force. A man who had thrown himself over Rex during the explosion, shielding him with his own body. Aaron stared at the photo and breathed out slowly. "You were loved," he murmured to Rex through the glass. "No wonder you're searching for something you can't reach anymore." Outside, the wind howled like a distant memory. Inside, Aaron made a choice without announcing it to anyone. He would give every night he had to Rex, not because he wanted to save a dog, but because he knew what it meant to lose one, and because somewhere beneath the fear, he could see a soul still fighting. Rex lifted his head just once before drifting into an uneasy sleep, and Aaron stayed until long past midnight, listening to the quiet breathing of a dog who did not yet know he had arrived at the last place that would not abandon him. Night descended early over Northwood Ridge, the kind of deep winter night that swallowed sound and pressed against the windows like a living thing. The storm forecast had already warned of high winds and swirling snow, but no one expected the blizzard to roll in so quickly. By the time the street lamps flickered on, the town was already half hidden beneath a veil of white. Inside the police station, the hallways glowed with muted amber lighting, warm enough to resist the winter's bite, yet shadowed enough to feel as quiet as a chapel. The K9 isolation wing sat at the far end of the building, behind 2 reinforced steel doors and a small vestibule lined with motion sensors. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and old pine wood, a scent meant to calm working dogs, but useless against a storm raging inside a frightened mind. Rex lay curled in the corner of his enclosure, the thick sable-black fur on his shoulders rising and falling in uneven breaths. The past week had been a slow progression. Small signs of trust, small moments of calm, but Rex was still a creature living between instinct and memory, between a world that was safe and another that was forever exploding. When the first gust of wind slammed against the roof, Rex lifted his head sharply. The lights above flickered once. A metallic rattle echoed in the ventilation duct. That was all it took. His muscles tensed, his ears flattened, and his eyes widened in a way that told the truth long before any bark could reveal it. He was no longer in a quiet mountain town. He was back in the split-second world where he had lost everything. Behind the glass, Officer Aaron Hale stood watching, a steaming cup of bitter station coffee untouched in his hands. Aaron had expected a difficult night. The air itself felt charged, but seeing Rex's body tremble, seeing his paws twitch as if bracing for debris, stirred an ache Aaron kept hidden from others. It was the same ache he had carried since losing his former K9 partner, Shadow, 2 winters ago. It was the ache of witnessing a creature with a brave heartbreak under invisible weight. Aaron set the cup down and stepped closer to the glass, palms open, voice low and steady. "Hey Rex, it's just the wind. You're safe. Nothing here's going to hurt you." But Rex wasn't hearing him. The storm had become a battlefield soundtrack, wind becoming screeching metal, thunder becoming detonations, flickering lights becoming the final seconds before the blast that stole his handler. Rex rose suddenly, pacing from one corner of the enclosure to the other, tail down, paws clicking rapidly against the cold floor. His breath fogged against the glass as he passed it, and Aaron saw his eyes darting, searching for shadows, searching for Sergeant Cross, searching for a command that would not come. Captain Jacob Morrison arrived through the hallway then, his heavy boots echoing on the linoleum floor. His coat was dusted with snow, his shoulders stiff from fighting wind just to reach the door. "Storm's getting worse," Morrison muttered as he joined Aaron at the glass. "We may lose power if the lines go down." He watched Rex silently for a moment, the lines of his face tightening. "How long has he been like this?" "Since the wind hit the vents," Aaron replied. "He's reacting to the sound. It's probably triggering a flashback." "Flashback." Morrison let the word hang between them, heavy as falling snow. Then he spoke more quietly, as though admitting something he didn't want to believe. "Aaron, you know the timeline. He has 30 days. If his episodes don't improve, the military will recall him." Aaron did not look away from Rex. "And if he's recalled?" Morrison sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "You know how it goes. Severe PTSD cases rarely get reassigned. They can't be adopted out. It's complicated." "Complicated?" Aaron echoed, though they both knew exactly what it meant. Rex's life hung by a thread only time and compassion could strengthen. The storm roared louder outside, as if punctuating the thought. Morrison folded his arms. "I need you to be realistic, Aaron. You can't save every dog." Aaron's voice was steady, but something fierce glimmered beneath it. "Maybe not, but I'm not letting him go without trying." Morrison studied him, a long, searching look, then nodded once. "I'll trust your judgment, but don't lose yourself in this." With that, he turned and walked down the hall, boots echoing until the sound faded away. Aaron remained. He watched Rex continue pacing, watched his panic grow sharper with every flash of light, watched the past consume him. Aaron knew PTSD when he saw it, knew the helplessness of it, the suffocating fear without a source. He had seen it in fallen officers, in survivors, and once in the mirror. It was the memory of Shadow that pushed him forward. Shadow had been a black and tan German shepherd with eyes full of loyalty, a dog who had died during a mountain rescue when a rock slide cut off their escape route. Aaron still remembered the moment Shadow pushed him out of the fall's path, saving him. He carried the guilt like a stone in his chest. He knew Rex wasn't Shadow, but he also knew what it meant to lose a partner, to fail one. So, he refused to fail another. Aaron pulled a metal chair closer, placing it right against the glass, and sat. "Rex," he whispered into the storm-dimmed room. "I'm here. I'm not leaving." Rex froze mid-pace, ears flicking as if registering the steadiness of Aaron's voice. He didn't come closer, but his breathing shifted, still fast, still uneven, but aware. Outside, snow battered the roof in relentless waves. Inside, Aaron stayed where he was, hour after hour, letting silence speak for him. Time bled into night. The lights flickered again, and Rex flinched, but he remained curled near the wall instead of crashing against it, like he had in the first days. A small victory, fragile but real. Past midnight, the worst of the blizzard tapered, leaving the world wrapped in soft whiteness. Aaron's eyelids were heavy, but he refused to sleep. He watched Rex inch toward the center of the enclosure, circling once before lying down. His tail twitched, but the trembling slowed. Aaron allowed himself a small breath of hope. "Good boy," he murmured. "You made it through tonight." Rex's eyes lifted just enough to meet Aaron's through the glass. Not recognition, not trust, but awareness. And for a dog lost in the storm of his own memories, awareness was the first step toward coming home. When dawn approached, pale and hesitant behind the mountains, Aaron remained in the same chair, jacket draped over his shoulders, gaze soft and patient. Rex, exhausted from the panic, had drifted into an uneasy sleep. Snow continued to fall outside, blanketing Northwood Ridge in peace it hadn't felt for hours. And so ended the night, quiet, fragile, holding the smallest promise that maybe, just maybe, Rex could be rebuilt from the pieces he still carried. Morning arrived beneath a thin gray sky, the kind that promised more snow, but not yet willing to commit. Northwood Ridge sat hushed under a fresh coat of white, rooftops softened, pines bending slightly under the weight of the long winter. The storm from the night before had passed, but the town still felt as though it stood inside the quiet breath after a cry. In the K9 isolation wing, the world was still. Rex slept curled near the center of his enclosure, his breathing shallow but steady, the first sleep in days not filled with frantic pacing or frantic whimpers. The storm had exhausted him, yes, but something else had shifted too, something Aaron couldn't quite name. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was the first moment Rex had allowed the world to exist without seeing it as a battlefield. Aaron stood outside the glass that morning, dark circles under his eyes, jacket wrinkled from sleeping upright in the chair. When Captain Morrison walked in, brushing off leftover snow from his shoulders, he raised an eyebrow. "You stayed all night again?" "Yeah," Aaron murmured. He calmed down eventually. Morrison followed Aaron's gaze toward the sleeping dog. "Small victories. Don't count on patterns yet." "I'm not," Aaron replied, though inside, part of him hoped the fragile strand between them might hold. Morrison sighed softly, not unkindly, then moved on. Repairs were scheduled for the outer door of the K9 wing. The storm had rattled the frame loose, leaving one hinge misaligned. By mid-morning, 2 technicians arrived, unloading toolboxes and metal components. The air filled with metallic clangs and drills humming, though the inner isolation door kept the noise distant enough not to disturb Rex. Meanwhile, across town, another story was making its quiet way toward the station. Is Emily Grant, 30 years old, slim with a gentle posture shaped by years of carrying burdens she never spoke of, held the hand of her 7-year-old daughter, Lily, as they approached the police station entrance. Emily had soft brown hair usually tied in a low bun, warm hazel eyes, and a tired kindness that made her seem older than her age. She had once been full of laughter, the kind that lit up a room, but grief had given her voice a quieter tone, like a song sung through snowfall. Her husband, Officer Thomas Grant, had died 1 year ago, killed during a summer rescue when a landslide crushed his patrol vehicle. Since then, Emily carried her sadness like a folded letter inside her coat. Always with her, rarely opened, Lily, in contrast, carried her father's spirit in bright ways. She was a small girl, with long dark hair tucked under a knitted hat, cheeks rosy from cold, eyes wide with curiosity about everything in the world. Lily had her father's boldness and her mother's tenderness, a blend that made her both brave and gentle. Today they had come to place a framed photograph and a fresh white lily at the memorial wall inside the station, a yearly ritual Emily promised Lily they would never miss. As they stepped inside, warmth met them, along with the distant sounds of tools from the K9 hallway. "Mom, are they fixing something?" Lily asked, tilting her head. "Probably from the storm," Emily said. "Don't wander, okay?" But Lily was already glancing around, drawn by faint noises deeper in the station. Not the technicians, but the soft, almost unnoticeable shuffle of paws behind a door she didn't yet know existed. The hallway leading to the K9 wing was partially open, a sign reading, "Authorized personnel only," propped aside while repairs were underway. One technician was kneeling on the floor, adjusting wires inside a control panel. Another was testing the outer lock, the heavy steel door ajar to allow him room to work. Lily slowed as they passed, her gaze sharpened. She heard something, a soft huffing sound, followed by silence. "Mom," she whispered, "I hear a dog." Emily turned. "Maybe one of the K9 units, but we shouldn't go there." "Just a peek," Lily said, already taking a step. Before Emily could stop her, Lily slipped past the technician, who was too focused on securing a hinge to notice, and wandered up to the second inner door. It was closed, a thick slab of reinforced steel with a narrow seam at the bottom. Behind it, Rex stirred. He sensed a presence. The faintest scent drifted under the seam, something warm, familiar, not from last night or from months ago, but from another life entirely. Rex lifted his head, ears twitching, breath catching. He pushed himself up slowly, muscles tense but curious. On the other side of the door, Lily stood still, tiny boots planted on the floor, scarf wrapped around her neck, breath making a little cloud in the cold hallway. "Hello?" she whispered, her voice soft as snowflakes. Rex moved closer, step by step, until his nose touched the inside of the steel. He didn't growl, didn't whine, didn't pace or panic. He simply stood, listening, breathing her in, Lily leaned forward, her voice fragile and trembling with compassion that only a child could give without thinking. "You're not scary. I heard you crying." At that very moment, Aaron turned the corner. His heart nearly stopped. "Lily," he said sharply. He jogged toward her, gently pulling her back from the inner door. "Sweetheart, you can't be back here. It's not safe." Emily rushed in behind him, flustered and apologizing. "I'm so sorry, Officer Hale. She slipped away while I was talking with the desk sergeant." But Aaron barely heard her, because his focus snapped to what was unfolding behind the glass. Rex wasn't panicking. Rex wasn't hiding. Rex was standing right up against the door, head lowered, eyes wide in a way Aaron had never seen. Not terrified, not triggered, almost searching. The technician, startled by the sudden cluster of people, stepped away from his tools. "I didn't realize she got this close. Sorry, officer." "It's fine," Aaron murmured, mesmerized. He had watched Rex break at the sound of wind, flinch at flickering light, sink into the battlefield with every unfamiliar noise. But now, the presence of a child standing just feet away had silenced all of that. Emily tightened her grip on Lily's hand, ready to pull her away, but Lily leaned slightly forward and whispered once more, "You're okay? I know you're sad." Rex's ears lifted, his eyes softened. Aaron felt something shift inside his chest, a change, a key fitting into a lock no one had known existed. When he finally guided Emily and Lily away from the K9 wing, Rex remained standing at the door for long seconds, his tail giving the smallest, almost invisible twitch. Aaron looked at him through the glass, breath trapped in his throat. For the first time since Rex arrived, since the explosion that stole Sergeant Cross, Rex wasn't staring into the past. He was staring at something, someone in the present, someone impossibly connected to the man he had lost. Aaron whispered, voice low and filled with wonder, "What was that, Rex?" Rex did not move, but he kept looking at the door where Lily had stood, as if holding on to a warmth he could not yet understand. And Aaron, standing alone in the quiet hallway, felt the first spark of hope flicker to life. Winter deepened in Northwood Ridge like ink bleeding slowly across a page. Snowfall thickened each day, piling over rooftops, softening the edges of fences, swallowing the sound of passing cars so thoroughly that the world felt like a dream made only of white and breath. In this muted landscape, the K9 wing of the police station remained a tiny island of warmth. Low lights, heated floors, the faint hum of generators keeping the cold at bay. And in that warmth lived Rex, the dog who had once known explosions louder than any storm and loved a handler more strongly than he could ever describe. It had been 3 days since Lily Grant first appeared at the edge of his world. 3 days since her little voice, gentle and unafraid, had pierced through the fog of Rex's memories and made him lift his head for something other than fear. Since that moment, something in Rex had been shifting, quietly but undeniably. The next afternoon, Emily Grant and Lily returned to the station to drop off paperwork Morrison had requested regarding the memorial event. Lily, wrapped in her burgundy winter coat and pale blue scarf, tugged at her mother's hand the moment they stepped inside. "Mom, can I say hi to the sad dog again?" Emily hesitated, torn between caution and the strange pull she had felt when watching Rex's reaction days earlier. "Only if Officer Hale says it's okay," she finally said. So, Lily rushed ahead, small boots pattering on tile, toward Aaron. Aaron had just finished updating the behavioral log on Rex when he heard the footsteps. He turned, surprised to find Lily smiling at him, cheeks flushed from the cold. "Can I see him?" "Just through the glass." Aaron glanced toward the K9 wing, then back at her. "I don't see why not, but stay by the window, okay? No touching the doors." Lily nodded solemnly, as though he had entrusted her with the most serious rule in the world. Emily approached more slowly, offering Aaron an apologetic look. "If it's a problem, we can leave." "It's not a problem," Aaron replied. "Actually, it might help him." They walked together to the reinforced viewing window. Rex was lying down when they arrived, his head resting between his paws, tail still. But the instant Lily's reflection appeared on the glass, Rex's ears perked. He lifted his head. His eyes widened, not with fear, but with recognition of something he couldn't yet place. Lily pressed a tiny hand to the glass. "Hi again, friend." Rex rose slowly, almost cautiously, and stepped forward until he stood a few inches from the other side of the window. He sniffed the surface deeply. His body stiffened, then softened with a shudder that rippled through his fur. There it was, the scent that lived somewhere between memory and present. Lily's scarf carried the faint fragrance of lavender detergent that Emily used for years. Emily's coat carried the same trace. And woven between those scents was something older, something belonging to a man Rex had adored. Rex couldn't understand the logic of it, but the emotion hit him with the force of a buried heartbeat. Sergeant Cross, not his voice, not his face, but the scent of his home, a piece of him, a ghost of belonging. Emily watched, astonished by how the huge German shepherd, so powerful, so wounded, stood trembling not with fear, but with recognition. "He remembers you," Lily whispered, pressing her forehead gently to the glass. "I think he knows you're good." The next days unfolded with a rhythm that felt almost sacred. Each afternoon, Lily would visit for a few minutes, sometimes 10, sometimes 15, standing behind the glass, speaking softly or simply watching. And every day Rex changed just a little. Day 3. When officers walked past his enclosure, Rex no longer barked or lunged. He simply observed them, ears twitching but body still. Day 6. He finished his entire meal for the first time since arriving at Northwood Ridge. Before, he would eat only half, often stopping abruptly as if something unseen frightened him. But this time, he ate calmly, then sat in the center of the room, a small miracle of its own. Day 10. He slept through the night, not restlessly, not half awake. A deep, restful sleep that left his body looser, his breathing slower. Aaron saw it on the monitor and felt something like hope bloom cautiously in his chest. Day 14. The breakthrough arrived. Lily pressed both hands to the glass and playfully mimicked simple canine commands she had seen on a cartoon. Sit, paw, lie down. She wasn't serious, wasn't expecting anything, just being a child. But Rex reacted. He followed the gestures, perfectly. Aaron froze behind her, unable to speak. Rex lowered himself to the ground when Lily lowered her hands. He sat when she raised them. He lifted his paw when she did the same. The entire canine wing fell silent as officers paused, watching this strange, gentle miracle. It made no logical sense. Rex hadn't obeyed commands in months, yet here he was, responding to the signs of a little girl he had met only days earlier. When Lily laughed in delight, Rex's tail thumped once, then twice, betraying a warmth he had kept buried deep inside. Emily covered her mouth, eyes wet. "Good boy," Lily whispered. "I knew you weren't scary." After they left, Rex continued staring at the door, as though waiting for the echo of their scent to fade. Aaron approached the enclosure slowly. "Rex," he murmured, "you did good." Rex didn't look at him, but he didn't retreat either, and to Aaron, that was enough. That night, long after the station emptied and the wind whispered across the frosted windows, Aaron sat in the quiet office reviewing Rex's military records again. Something had been gnawing at him since the first moment Rex reacted to Lily's scent. Something he couldn't quite piece together. The records included medical forms, performance evaluations, and a single folder of personal photos from Sergeant Daniel Cross. Aaron flipped through them mechanically. Cross training Rex, Cross playing fetch with him during downtime, Cross sitting beside the dog on the morning before deployment. Then he turned to the last page and froze. It was a photo of Cross with his wife Emily and their newborn daughter, a tiny baby wrapped in a soft blanket, a baby with Lily's dark hair and bright eyes. Aaron leaned back slowly, the realization spreading through him. Rex didn't recognize Lily's face. She had been just a baby then. But he recognized the scent of her home, the scent of her mother, the faint lingering trace of familiarity in the fibers of the clothes they wore. Rex wasn't just connecting with a random child. He was connecting with the only remaining pieces of his former handler's family. Aaron looked through the glass at Rex, who now slept curled in a looser, more peaceful shape, and felt the gravity of it all settle deep in his chest. "You're not lost," he whispered. "You've been searching for them." Outside, the snow drifted down gently, as though the world itself sensed the quiet miracle taking place inside the K9 wing of the Northwood Ridge police station. Rex, the dog who had survived a battlefield only to be trapped in its echoes, had found, through scent, memory, and the fragile warmth of a child's presence, the thread that might lead him home. Winter in Northwood Ridge had always been harsh, but by late December, it had grown unforgiving. The mountains loomed like sleeping giants under layers of white, and the valleys echoed with the creaks and groans of ice shifting deep beneath the earth. Residents walked with their collars pulled high, their breaths forming clouds that drifted away like tiny ghosts. It was the kind of winter that reminded people why the old maps had once marked this region with warnings. And atop that dangerous quiet sat White Hollow Road, a winding path carved along a cliffside, fragile as a ribbon of glass. By dusk, the town had issued an alert. Unstable terrain, possible land movement, avoid all mountain passes. Captain Morrison sent the notice to every phone in the station, shaking his head. Too much snowfall, he muttered. The mountain's holding more weight than it can take. Meanwhile, Emily, Grant, and Lily were making their way home in Emily's aging SUV after picking up groceries for the week. The snow fell in tiny glittering specks against the windshield. The heater hummed to keep the cold out. Lily sat in the back seat, hugging the scarf she always wore, the pale blue one that Rex seemed to recognize so easily. "Mom," she said softly, peering out the window, "why is the road so empty?" "Because they're expecting more snow," Emily replied, though a small unease prickled the back of her neck. She didn't know about the unstable cliffside, not yet. Signals were weak in the mountains, and her phone had lost reception 20 minutes earlier. Up at the station, however, chaos struck like lightning, literally. A sudden crack ripped through the sky, blinding and violent, followed by the explosive thunder that made every window rattle. The station lights flickered once, twice. Then a surge of static screeched through the K9 wing speakers. For a human, it was loud. For Rex, it was catastrophic. The world around him shifted instantly. The thunder became the boom of a roadside bomb. The buzzing speaker became the burning hiss before the detonation. The flickering light became the flash that had taken Sergeant Cross's life. Rex's body stiffened, his chest tightened. Panic clawed up his throat as his mind launched him back into the battlefield. He stumbled backward, bumping into the weakened hinge of his kennel door, the same hinge that technicians had repaired but not fully reinforced. It vibrated under the force, once, twice. Then, with one desperate lunge fueled by instinct and terror, Rex threw his full weight into the panel. The metal groaned, bent, snapped. The door flew open. An alarm shrieked through the hall. Aaron, who had just returned from filing a report, sprinted toward the noise. "Rex!" he shouted, seeing the door hanging loose. But Rex was already gone, vanished into the snowstorm beyond the emergency exit he'd forced open. Tracks led toward the forest, toward the mountain, toward White Hollow. "No," Aaron breathed. "He's running straight into the storm." Captain Morrison appeared at his side. "We'll send a team." But Aaron was already grabbing his coat. "I'm going after him." "Hale, stop!" But Aaron didn't. He knew Rex wasn't running blindly. He was running towards something, towards someone. And the instinct inside a K9, born of loyalty and scent, was stronger than any memory of pain. Emily reached the first turn of White Hollow Road just as the SUV's tires slipped slightly on a patch of fresh ice. She slowed, knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. "Easy! Easy!" But the earth beneath them began trembling, soft at first, then violently enough that she slammed on the brakes. "Mom," Lily whispered, fear rising. "It's okay," Emily said, though her pulse hammered. "I'm stopping the car." The tremor stopped. Silence returned. Snow drifted gently. For a moment, it almost felt safe, until Lily looked out her window and gasped. "Mom, it's Rex!" Emily twisted in her seat. Through the snowfall, a dark figure burst from the forest, bounding across the road with desperate urgency. Rex, his chest heaved, his fur was frosted with ice, and he was barking, not aggressively but warningly, repeatedly, as if trying to speak a language only danger understood. Rex skidded to a halt beside the vehicle, claws scraping across the icy road, his eyes locked onto Lily in the back seat. Then he turned sharply toward the line of trees, barked again, harder, more frantic. "He's telling us something," Lily whispered. Emily felt dread rise in her stomach. Something was wrong, very wrong. She unbuckled Lily and lifted her out of the car. They had barely stepped away when the ground behind them, exactly where the vehicle had been, let out a low groan. The sound of earth splitting open. The cliffside shuddered. Emily screamed, pulling Lily tight, stumbling backward towards safer ground. Then the road collapsed. The entire section where the SUV sat crumbled into the ravine below, swallowed by darkness. Emily fell to her knees from the shock. Snow bit into her palms. Her breath came in broken bursts. Lily trembled in her arms. And Rex. Rex stood between them and the fractured cliff, barking wildly as if to anchor them to the world. But the danger wasn't over. The earth beneath Lily's boots shifted again. A thin layer of ice cracked like glass. "Mom!" Lily slipped from Emily's grasp, sliding toward the broken edge. Emily lunged forward, fingers brushing her coat, but not catching. Lily slid faster, her boots unable to grip. "Lily!" Emily screamed. The world froze. The wind held its breath. Then something massive moved. Rex lunged. His paws tore through snow. His muscles strained. He launched himself across the sliding ground and caught Lily's coat between his teeth, a split second before she dropped. His claws carved deep lines in the ice as he fought gravity, his entire body, trembling from effort. Emily grabbed Rex by the harness, pulling both of them away from the ledge. The three collapsed in a heap a safe distance away, panting, crying, shivering. Lily clung to Rex, burying her face in his fur. "Thank you. Thank you." Rex licked her cheek once, weakly, before his legs buckled. He collapsed onto the snow. Emily gasped, "Rex! Rex!" But Rex didn't rise. Exhaustion, shock, pain from tearing muscles he'd injured during the escape. His breath was shallow, fogging faintly in the air. Snow began covering his fur in thin crystals. Emily grabbed her phone, but there was no signal. She looked down the road, no help. Then, as if answering a prayer she hadn't finished forming, headlights cut through the storm. Aaron Hale ran toward them, slipping in the snow, calling out, "Emily! Lily!" He reached them and dropped to his knees beside Rex. "I followed his tracks. Is he—" "He saved her," Emily said through tears. "He saved my daughter." Aaron placed a trembling hand on Rex's side. "It's okay, buddy. I've got you." And with the storm howling around them, they lifted Rex together, carrying him toward the rescue team, arriving behind Aaron, while the mountain continued to groan, collapsing into the abyss where the cliff had once been. Rex had held the line just long enough to save the last piece of the family he had lost. Dawn crept into Northwood Ridge like a timid visitor, its pale light thinning the darkness that had swallowed the town through the storm. The air outside was still bitterly cold, but the sky held a faint gold hue, as if the sun itself was trying to reassure the world that the worst had passed. Inside the small veterinary hospital on Pine Meadow Road, however, time felt frozen. Fluorescent lights bathed the hallway in harsh white. The scent of antiseptic clung to every surface. Machines beeped steadily behind closed doors, and the furnace hummed with the steady rhythm of survival. Aaron Hale stood outside the emergency surgery room, his clothes still damp from snow, his hands scratched from the rescue. But none of that mattered. All his attention was fixed on the dog being wheeled inside, a large German shepherd with ice crystals still stuck to his fur, each breath fragile and faint. Rex. Emily Grant and little Lily hurried into the hallway minutes later. Lily's cheeks were streaked with tears. Emily's coat fell from one shoulder, where she had forgotten to fasten it in her rush. Both knelt beside Rex before the door swung shut. "Is he going to be okay?" Emily asked, her voice shaking. Aaron didn't have an answer. "They'll do everything they can." The veterinarian, Dr. Rowan Hayes, a woman in her 40s with calm hands and the steady confidence of someone who had seen hundreds of emergencies, stepped forward. Her dark hair was pulled tightly into a bun, and thin reading glasses dangled from a chain around her neck. "He's in rough shape," Dr. Hayes said gently. "Severe muscle tearing around his shoulders and chest, likely from trying to stop the fall. He's also exhausted. His heart rate is irregular, and his temperature is dangerously low." Lily gripped the hem of Aaron's coat. "But he saved me!" Dr. Hayes knelt so she was eye level with the child. "And because of that, we're going to save him. But it will take time." They wheeled Rex into the operating room, the double doors swinging shut in a soft thud that echoed like a heartbeat through the hallway. Emily pulled Lily close, folding her into her arms as the little girl began to cry again. Aaron leaned against the wall, head bowed, letting out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The adrenaline was gone now, leaving only fear and hope knotted together in his chest. Hours crept by slowly. Snow continued to fall outside in gentle, almost forgiving flakes. Inside, the three waited in silence, broken only by the hum of the vending machine or the soft click of nurses' shoes on tile. Lily curled beside her mother on a long bench, whispering over and over, "Please be okay, Rex. Please be okay." Emily ran her fingers through Lily's hair as she fought her own tears. "He's strong, sweetheart. He made it this far." Aaron paced the hallway like a restless shadow. Every few minutes, he would stop and stare at the closed surgery door. He remembered the first night Rex had arrived, frightened, broken, trembling. He remembered the storm and Rex's panicked escape. He remembered the tracks that led him all the way to White Hollow and the sight of Rex standing between life and death for the little girl he barely knew but somehow loved. He remembered Shadow too, his old partner, the one he couldn't save. Maybe this, he thought, gripping his jacket tightly. Maybe saving Rex from falling into fear forever was the redemption he'd never dared ask for. At last, close to sunrise, the surgery doors opened. Dr. Hayes stepped out, fatigue etched across her face. "He made it," she said simply. Emily cried openly. Lily slid off the bench and ran to the doctor. "Can I see him?" "Not yet," Dr. Hayes said. "He's still very weak, but one of you can call his name. Sometimes familiar voices help them wake." They entered the recovery room, where Rex lay on a heating pad, IV lines attached to his leg, his fur shaved along his shoulder for the sutures. He looked so much smaller now, as though the weight of the world had finally pressed him into stillness. Lily approached quietly, almost reverently. "Rex," she whispered. "Rex." "I'm here." For a moment, nothing moved. Then Rex's ear twitched, slowly, as if lifting the weight of a lifetime. His eyelids fluttered open. His gaze found Lily, foggy, unfocused at first, then slowly sharpening. When their eyes met, something deep and wordless passed between them. His tail moved, just once, but it was enough to bring tears streaming down Lily's cheeks. "He remembers," she whispered. Aaron looked away, swallowing the knot in his throat. Emily wiped her face and whispered, "Thank God." Rex closed his eyes again, not in pain, but in comfort, settling back into a healing sleep. He had survived. 2 months later, winter began loosening its grip. Snowbanks shrank along the sidewalks. Icicles dripped steadily from rooftops. For the first time in months, Northwood Ridge felt the stirrings of spring. On a bright morning, the police station's courtyard filled with townspeople, officers, and reporters from neighboring counties. A small stage had been built, decorated with blue and white banners. Captain Morrison stood at the podium, clearing his throat. "We are gathered today," he announced, "to honor a member of our community who displayed exceptional bravery." Rex stepped onto the stage beside Aaron, wearing a temporary service harness for support, his muscles still healing, though he walked proudly. His coat shone under the sun, his ears high, his eyes clear. Lily and Emily stood in the front row. Morrison continued. "Rex, former K-9 of Bomb Disposal Unit 47, saved the lives of Emily and Lily Grant during the White Hollow collapse. Today, the town of Northwood Ridge recognizes him as our own." A cheer rose from the crowd. Aaron knelt beside. "Rex, as Morrison proclaimed, we name him Honorary K-9 Guardian of Northwood Ridge." Lily stepped forward, carrying something in her small hands, a faded wool scarf, its edges slightly frayed. The scarf that once belonged to Sergeant Daniel Cross. She approached Rex slowly, eyes shining. "My dad wore this," she said softly. "He loved you. Now I want you to have it." She placed the scarf gently around Rex's neck. Rex lifted his head and nuzzled her hand. Aaron watched them, the sunlight warming his shoulders, and felt something inside him settle for the first time in years. Rex had survived. Lily had survived. A thread of fate had woven their stories together again. mending grief into something strong and bright. Not everyone receives a miracle, he thought, but sometimes, when the world is covered in snow and the nights feel endless, a miracle arrives in the form of a child, and a dog who refuses to stop loving the family he lost. And as the crowd applauded, and Rex stood proudly with the scarf fluttering slightly in the breeze, the town of Northwood Ridge felt a little warmer, proof that even the coldest winters could melt when hearts found their way home. Sometimes God's miracles do not arrive with thunder or bright signs. Sometimes they come quietly through a loyal dog who refuses to give up, through a child whose kindness melts years of fear, or through the courage God places in ordinary people when they think they have nothing left. This story reminds us that even in the coldest winters of our lives, God walks beside us. He guides our steps, protects our families, and sends help in ways we often never expect. In our everyday struggles, when we feel tired, lonely, or overwhelmed, faith teaches us to look for the small signs, the gentle moments, the quiet blessings, the times when hope returns like a warm light in the snow. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs encouragement today. Leave a comment to tell us your thoughts, subscribe for more stories of hope, and may God bless you and your family with peace and protection wherever you are. And if you believe in the gentle miracles He sends, type Amen in the comments.